Markle, because I mean, this is she just stumbles into one catastrophe after another. You've now got the Mallorcan mayor saying you've nicked our symbol, our national symbol, as your blimmin' lifestyle brand's logo. And when you look at the two together, you kind of go, yeah, you got a point. Did she just go into like randomlogogenerator.com and because of algorithms and AI, it made that thing?
Well, look, bear in mind that this is the latest sort of incarnation of her lifestyle website that was called American Riviera Orchard. All of a sudden, after a year, she launched it last March. After a year, she suddenly changed the name to As Ever. Now, the reason she's had to do that is the logo, the name, American Riviera Orchard, has been locked in legal hell, legal wrangling, loads of challenges saying you can't have that trademark, it's too geographical. One major American shopping chain saying you've stolen our name, and so on and so forth. So she's had to drop that all of a sudden, change it to As Ever, and then quickly come up with this new logo. And lo and behold, there's another legal problem. It clashes with this little village in Mallorca, and they are furious. So what we've got here is a picture of a woman who is stumbling shambolically from one hurried measure to the next. And it just is a complete mess. This is the Daily Mail's headline yesterday was, "Is this Meghan's latest disaster?" And it's looking like it is.
Yeah, I would go on to say as incompetent as ever. You can see how people are going to riff off that. I mean, this is the thing. I think it kind of exposes that when it comes to all these people in their PR and marketing firms, and they're paid like £200,000. Oh my God, we got such inspiration. We're going to work on this, and we're going to mock up that, and then here's our proposal, and actually it's going to cost you like no. Most of them are just rubbish idiots who haven't got a brain cell in their head, who literally just go onto a website and go, "Can you make me a logo that shows a nice palm tree?" And it just goes, the computer does it for them, then comes out of Mallorca. Good money after bad. Right, let's talk about the fact that she's now still blaming, guess who for all of her woes? Oh, that's right, her relatives.
Yeah, well, she's taken to, since she's relaunched her Instagram account a couple of months ago, she's taken to making these breathless little films. A couple of weeks ago, excruciatingly and embarrassingly, she made a video about getting a kid a Billie Eilish t-shirt because she'd had her house destroyed, including the washing machine in which was her Billie Eilish t-shirt. And basically Meghan made a big thing about how I got hold of Billie and Billie gave her this t-shirt. Oh, it's so great. Well, you know, you could have got it off the internet for about $15 in about 2 seconds flat. So that was embarrassing. That was slammed by all and sundry. And now she's made this new video saying, "Oh, at last, my business is going to happen. It's so great." And she says, we're going to call it As Ever. And she says, "We've had As Ever registered since 2022. Well, why didn't you call it As Ever then? You didn't call it As Ever, did you? You called it American Riviera Orchard." So suddenly, I think by Netflix, who are trying to recoup some of the $100 million they gave to the gruesome twosome, Harry and Meghan. Netflix have got involved, and they've said, "Look, we're going to sell your produce at our stores in shopping malls in both Texas and Philadelphia, and we're going to coincide with the launch of your show With Love, Meghan, which goes out on March the 4th." And they're just trying to. So this is the latest sort of iteration of this shambolic business that after almost a year, it's been open. She launched it a year ago. It has never sold a damn thing. It is not open for business. And this is a latest desperation measure. And once again, in her naive way, she has waded straight into a legal roadblock.
Well, it's narcissism. Isn't the royal family were really terrified of Harry getting married to her because she's a baked-in mad narcissist. And when you listen to what she says, it's all like, "I lost my voice, finally able to have my voice. I wanted to share it with you, but I haven't been able to share it with you in the same way because of the royal family. You know, they wouldn't let me essentially become the entire Meghan show because, you know, family is in the title there. It's about the royal family family. You're part of, you know, a whole group of people representing a nation. But, you know, she's not able to talk about cooking and gardening and produce and, you know, the things that are really trendy. But what about Highgrove? That's literally got its own produce that princes, princesses and duchesses are allowed to try their hand and, you know, get involved with that. She could have just like thrown herself into like, you know, duchy products or something. But instead, no, she wanted to do it all herself. It has to be Meghan's munch.
Yeah, exactly. And she's implying in this video, in this statement, that while she was under the repressive hand of the British royal family, I mean, apart from the fact, you know, she's already maintained they're just a bunch of racists, they also now, we learn from her, suppressed her fantastic talent for cooking and gardening. You know, I mean, I like to cook. I don't say I'm that great, but, you know, I could do a program, say, hey, cooking with Kev, it's great, yeah. Oh, look, here's Kev digging up the garden. Oh, he's planted a rose. That's not a business. What is her special skill?
Oh, her special skill is talking about Meghan. That's the thing. If you look at all the things that Meghan produces, that Meghan wants to do, it's like, well, I really think this program should be about me interviewing other brilliant women. You do all the work and I'm going to take some credit. This program should all be about me in a kitchen, which is perfectly designed, talking about my perfect life so I can look really perfect. Oh, this program should all be about me going to meet people who have been affected by the wildfires, even though it's nowhere near to anything that I know. I mean, that is what Meghan's special skill is, and that's pretty much Netflix have gone, all right, here she comes, the self-promoter. I suppose we better give her a program on self-promoting.
Well, they've got this deal. So they've got the remnants of this $100 million contract that, in my view, they very unwisely forged with Harry and Meghan. They haven't got much out of it. Now, this is the tail end of that deal. They are just desperately trying to recoup any cash possible. Now, what I think that they think at Netflix is, well, you know, just maybe there's an outside chance that Meghan would love a program, but during which you can learn such vital things as how to freeze edible flower petals into ice cubes. This is an important stuff during the cost of living crisis. They think, well, we'll get that show out. We'll try to sell some of her jam. And you never know, maybe, just maybe, it might take off. But what is this business based on? It is based on sort of trying to sell nice things, you know, like jam and towels.
Would you rather she sort of joined the sort of climate change movement and was trying to sell like witchetty grubs and locusts instead?
Yeah, but she's trying to sell all these nice things for exorbitant prices. You know, so in other words, you can get a beige towel for her that will cost you down the street, you know, I don't know, 10 quid. You can get it for her for about 40 quid or $50, whatever. So it's overpriced Meg branding. And I just don't think Americans are going to buy it. Why would they do this? This is the cost of living crisis. You know, I don't need to know how to freeze petals into ice cubes. And B, if I want to get a beige towel, I know I'll spend 10 quid on it, not 50. This business, I would say, put it this way, has got a mountain to climb.
Well, we just have to hope and pray she doesn't release a Gwyneth Paltrow-style candle. We all know what that was made of. Do you know what would be absolutely brilliant? Well, when does this thing come out on Netflix?
March the 4th.
Do you know, we should get together, right? We should watch it and just be like, you know, our own version of Gogglebox. Sit there and slag off every single little scene in it and then just put it out to the world to enjoy as some sort of, you know, release.
You see, you should have kept that idea to yourself. That is a really good idea. Let's do it.
Well, there you go. Well, I told you about it. There you go. We'll get on with it. And now I've said it on air. People are going to be demanding it. We've built up an audience, unlike Meghan.
Everybody will be doing it now.
For Kevin, we announced this before anyone else in the media. We had it first, as ever. Meghan Markle. Now, I wasn't aware that she was going to launch it within hours of our discussion, but a part of me wonders if we pushed her to it because it's clearly not ready to go.
It certainly isn't. Yeah, you and I were talking one day after my show, where live you kind of revealed, you broke the news that suddenly American Riviera Orchard was no more, and that Meghan had renamed her long-term struggling lifestyle site as ever. Now, look, there's a couple of things. Well, there's obviously loads of things to talk about here. But first of all, let's talk about the name. She's really weird. She doesn't understand the meaning of words or the meaning of phrases. So when she called her podcast series Archetypes, well, an archetype that's a derogatory term, archetypal, stereotype. So she tried to sort of raise that to some sort of, kind of prestigious mantle. And now she's renamed American Riviera Orchard as ever. Now, how do you say as ever? You always go as ever, as ever, as ever. It is not an upbeat kind of a phrase. So I think it's a terrible, terrible name. And it's a desperate measure as well, isn't it? I mean, she's going, oh, it's so great because, American Riviera Orchard tied me down. What is she talking about? What on earth is she? What do you mean tied you down? You mean you just plucked the name out of the ether and found yourself enmeshed, mired in loads of legal difficulties, and a whole year later, after untold legal battles, untold legal wrangles, obviously Netflix have turned around and said, tell you what, Meghan, let's just call it something else. And they've come up with As Ever, which is just the worst name ever, if I can say that. And what does it mean? And why has she suddenly done this now? And she's trying to frame it like, oh, it's so great. I was so tied down by American Riviera Orchard and Netflix have been so fantastic. Oh, this is fantastic. Marvelous. Marvelous. No, it's not. This is an absolute desperation measure, trying to get a dead duck off the ground, trying to resuscitate the world's worst business dead duck and make something of it late in life. Good luck with that. And then she goes on about what she's going to be selling, what it's all about. And basically, it's like nice things, nice things overpriced. Now, I think that the entire story of American Riviera Orchard and now As Ever is a metaphor for how it will struggle. The backstory is a nightmare, is a total mess. She launches it, nothing happens. 1 year on, nothing is for sale. She makes a sort of stupid video of her mucking around in a kitchen. And you think, well, what's she going to sell? She's still not selling anything. And we know she's had trouble getting suppliers. She's had lawyers all over her because of the name and due to other considerations as well. She's got nothing to sell. So all of a sudden, it's an emergency. All change. It's an emergency that's going on now. And she's acting like it's brilliant. This is what I always wanted. Isn't it fantastic? So, and
the cat's out of the bag. Like, no.
But it's not what she's putting on Instagram now. It's just not true.
No, I think you're totally right. And would you believe me if I told you that a Spanish town is considering legal action against her because her logo looks so strikingly similar to their I'm sorry, I'm spacing on that the arms,
the town logo.
Coat of arms. They have a coat of arms, and so they're now considering suing her because they look identical, which is just classic Countess of copy, Countess copycat. That I want to ask you about the video because you sent it to me earlier this morning. I don't know if it was before or after you had your breakfast. I'm worried about which one, but talk to me about Meghan calling Netflix her partners. You are an employee, Meghan. You can get fired at any second. Why? What is she trying? I feel like she's trying to stick it to people like us that are constantly critical of her when she calls Netflix her partners. She seeks the most bizarre validation.
Yeah, she wants equal billing with Netflix as if they're working together. Well, what Netflix are doing right now are desperately trying to make any money, trying to recoup the vast amounts of money they've frankly wasted on the gruesome twosome, on Harry and Meghan. Yes, they've got some product out of it. You know, they got a reasonable documentary series, the Harry and Meghan series. But apart from that, they haven't really recouped any of their vast investment in this couple. So that's why Netflix, late in life, said, right, we've got this lifestyle show coming out with Love Meghan. Let's get involved in her products. Let's take American Riviera Orchard and see if we can make some money out of it. So they've definitely come in and said, right, we're tearing up the copybook. Forget about American Riviera Orchard. That name is dead because it's not working. New name. Let's launch. Let's start selling your jam in Texas and Philadelphia. See how we get on. Let's coincide it with your lifestyle show. And just maybe we might make some money. But who is calling the shots here? It's not her. It's not her. It is a massive business that is worried about losing a lot of money. She's doing what she's told, but she's acting almost as if she's in charge of Netflix, as if she somehow is Netflix's most valuable possession. She's a basket case for them, and they're hoping against hope at this late stage, with this coinciding between the show and the jam on sale in Texas, that just maybe they might make some money. But I think it's pretty desperate stuff. I think deep down, they don't really expect this to work. And if they do, I've got very bad news for them. I think the chances of it working are extremely slim indeed.
That's the truth. Now, she announces this with I think her opening line with is the cat's out of the bag, and she goes on for the next few minutes to explain try to justify every hiccup she's had over the last few years. I don't let me forget to ask you about the line about how she hasn't been able to show people how she loves gardening, and she's not been able to over the last few years. I mean, the princess escaped the tower 5 years ago, Kevin. She's had plenty of time over the last 5 years to show us anything. They're lazy and unorganized. But does it strike you at all odd that the website is just an email collection site, which is the exact same thing we stared at for the last almost year at AmericanRivieraOrchard.com? It reeks to me, like you suggested earlier, that we got wind of this and she wanted to kill the scoop. So she rushed to create this video, and she says, I want to tell you first. You can say I want to tell you first all you want, but you and I had a conversation about it hours before she released that video.
And it's also this sort of breathless little girl act. I'm so excited. I got my business. Oh, my business with my partners at Netflix. She's not an excited little girl. She is a ruthless, calculating, failed businesswoman. I mean, let's underscore all of this. She's not very good at this stuff.
Yes.
Not a particularly successful actress. She's a very, very unsuccessful documentary maker. She bought the rights to a film that hasn't been made. And this business venture of hers, which took the principle of the TIG, her lifestyle site when she was in Suits up in Canada, and tried to turn it into a big money-making machine. It's a fair enough idea. Now, as a sort of marginally successful actress in a cable show drama, little lifestyle site, as such, wasn't a failure. Quite nice to look at. Turning it into an international global business, some bimbo on the West Coast going, it's my jam, it's my honey. Oh, you want to buy some towels? No, not really. I just can't see how it's going to work. So everything about what she gave us in that video, everything that she now stands for, is a kind of falsity. The latest desperate measure to try to make her ongoing procession line of failures actually work at last. Now, who knows? Maybe it will work. But I suspect at Netflix Towers, they're not banking on it.
Yeah. I just want before anybody gets mad at you for calling her a bimbo, she called herself a bimbo on the Archetypes podcast regarding her Deal or No Deal gig. So I don't want anybody to be mad at you about that. What else was
I don't care if they are mad about me calling her a bimbo. That probably is a bit unfair, but hey ho, she puts herself in the public frame. You have to take the slings and arrows as well.
That's true.
Maybe that's a bit unfair, but I don't care.
Well, so I forgot to mention remember she did, according to Richard Eden, prematurely launch American Riviera Orchard to kill his scoop. So that was my point on the last question. I could have mentioned that in my statement. But so you talking about how this is like rebrand number 35, basically is what you just said. Well, there was a quote in the Daily Mail. The title of the article is called "Another Brand Disaster," where someone says, this is an expert, says, the more unpredictable she is, the harder it is to take her down. She's not trying to be Goop. She's trying to be a mystery. The product she's selling, endless curiosity about Meghan Markle. So maybe she's not losing control of her narrative. Maybe we are. I think she looks schizophrenic. And the only thing that has been interesting about her is her time within the British royal family. And she has said everything I think she's capable of saying about that. The royal family refuses to have anything to do with her going forward. And if she continued to talk negatively about the British royal family, the anger towards her would only get stronger. So she really is limited. We're not curious about her. It's like watching a train wreck. She left this really cush privileged life for what? I think the reason we watch is because we can't believe what we're seeing.
Exactly right, Kinsey. And you mentioned the Daily Mail over here in London, and their headline on this story when she suddenly said, "Oh, it's brilliant! We've renamed it as ever." Their headline in a big national newspaper here in Britain was, "Is this Meghan's latest disaster?" This is the scenario she finds herself in now. People just expect her to screw up, and then screw up again. And that's all she's done for the last couple of months. She's screwed up going to the Los Angeles fires badly. She screwed up with that Billie Eilish video, absolutely ridiculous and tasteless. She screwed up at the Invictus Games by, frankly, stealing the limelight and making that excellent event all about her. So on and on it goes. And then suddenly we've got this again. So the narrative she finds herself in, this is what people are thinking about her, is how will this woman screw it up next? Is this Meghan's latest disaster? And you make a really good point as well, Kinsey. If we go to the big picture, what was it now? 3-4 years ago, she was, in effect, a princess Duchess, but you know what I mean? A princess in the castle in Britain, living the dream. She really was a frontline royal, mixing with the Queen, living in palaces, flying around the world, doing amazing tours with her husband, whole life ahead of her. She didn't like that much. Here we are 4 years on. What's she doing?
Yeah.
Selling jam, and pretending that all's well in her world when it's just clearly not.
And the idea that she's basically plagiarized a coat of arms. She has, with her logo, that it could potentially inevitably be challenged in court. It gets no better than this. But with American Riviera Orchard, I talked to a branding expert who had no opinion of Meghan Markle whatsoever, and she said, "I think it's odd that she's insisting on using something that looks so similar to, a royal crest for American Riviera Orchard." I think it was the calligraphy. The logo somehow looked like
it looks similar to a royal logo.
Yes, and so to me, I'd say to you, she has not been a royal longer than she was a royal. Yeah. What is the insistence from her? Is this the only thing that gives, in her mind, is this the only thing that gives her credibility, that she clings to this? Because it's hard for a lot of people to digest a woman that complained so much about an institution and was so hateful about an institution towards the last few years of the Queen's life, making it a living hell, for her then to make it her entire identity when she was a royal for like this long.
Yeah. Well, she in the video that she's made, she's so excited. She references, oh, you know, at long last, I'm going to be able to share with you my love of gardening, of cooking, and so on and so forth. So the veiled reference there is that while she was a working royal here in amongst the repressive royal family, her wonderful artistic temperament was suppressed. And at long last, she can share her amazing talents with the world. I mean, you know, I've got the same kind of talents as her. I can go in the kitchen and make some bread or some jam. This is not a business. Now, it would be if she was a very, very popular celebrity. So celebrities can get away with murder, you know, in terms of what they can sell to the public.
Literally, ask O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, because people love them. So they'll buy their product. Oh, this jam comes, you know, with Tom Cruise on the. Oh, I like Tom Cruise. Oh, it's Paul Newman's salad dressing. I like Paul Newman. So on and so forth. Now, very successful stars can make money out of that, but you've got to be successful and you've got to be popular. May I humbly suggest she is neither. She's not successful and she's certainly not popular. So trying to sell products on the back of a lack of success and a lack of popularity, good luck with that, Meghan. You're going to need it.
And she knows that she's not popular. What we were just talking about, it was that Tom Quinn's book that said Prince Harry was so ugly when he was with her because he was being protective of her because he knew people didn't like her. You know, she turns her comments off on her Instagram posts. That is a person that knows that in incoming, like she's hiding from something. She knows that, and you're right. It's so bizarre to me that she wants to go this specific route, even though she tells us in this video, well, if you know anything about me, I love gardening. I love this. If you look at her success, any type of success that she does have, and she does have success, we'll give her that. When she wears something, oftentimes it sells out. Why would you not go in the direction of fashion? Because that's kind of a no-brainer. And yeah, she looks good in this thing, so I'm going to buy it. But it feels so intentional to go in the preserves direction when that's something that King Charles and Queen Elizabeth have done for years within the royal family. It feels so blatantly intentional, like she is so angry that she couldn't make it. So she is going to show them that she's going to compete with them in whatever space she can. But it would make so much more sense to me if she just lingered in the fashion world, because yeah, people like what she wears and they'll go buy it, and you know, okay. But to make jam and all this, it just to me reeks of continuing to try to compete with the royal family across the pond.
That's a really good point. The kind of range of products she's got are the kind of things you can buy in Duchy Original shops. Now, Duchy's Original, you know, which is King Charles's, or when he was the Prince of Wales, that was his range of biscuits and cookies and jam and things like that. Very home producey, farm produce. Now, that's a good example of what I was talking about. Now, Duchy's Original products are notorious. I mean, they are astronomically expensive. You know, like 3 times as much.
I paid $5 for an orange juice at Windsor Castle. That was from Sandringham.
Well, exactly. Yeah,
apple juice.
Pack of cookies, 3 times as much as a normal pack of cookies, but it works. When the king was the Prince of Wales, he had a massive income. I mean, millions and millions and millions of pounds a month, not a year, a month, because he's popular, because people like him. They want to buy his products with the royal crest on. She's trying to replicate that with pretend royal crests and pretending that she's popular. It won't work if she's not popular. In terms of fashion, I think the difficulty there would be that will cost her a lot of money. You know, I mean, what do you sell? Do you create your own range? Do you hook up with a big label like Gucci or someone? How does that go? I think it's a difficult area.
Well, I also think, to your point about the Gucci, I don't think those big brands want anything to do with her because her brand has become so toxic. Remember when they leaked that she was talking to Dior, and she never had a deal with Dior, but Prince Harry showed up in Dior at the Queen's funeral. Remember that?
Yeah, exactly. You remember also this is the point. About, I think it must be 2 years ago now, maybe a year and a half, it was revealed that that's when she was talking about Dior, but she was on the cusp, another one of her plans that never came up, that she was going to become an influencer and would be the first internet or social media influencer to charge $1 million per post. And people go, oh my God. And she started giving interviews saying, I just didn't realize, that all I've got to do is promote something and it can make so much money. This is the direction I'm going to go in. And then did we see her getting any influencer deals? No, she didn't get any deals at all. And I'll tell you why. It's because the companies want to use influencers. They want to make sure that those influencers are almost universally popular. If these influencers divide the room, even if they got 50-50, they got 50% mad supporters, 50% haters. Influencer companies don't want to know. Because if you have detractors, it's not going to work. That's why, in my view, she's never done any influencing, because no one in the influencing world wants to know her, because there are too many people who are going to come in and, frankly, excuse the language, piss all over whatever she posted.
Well, I can tell you that she is still, you're referring to the New York Times interview where she says she's a dolphin, not a shark when it comes to Shark Tank. And she talks about how she invests in certain brands, wears them. And we joked about how she truly is investing in herself because she invests in the clothes, she wears the clothes. And then we believe, I believe, I don't know if you're on board with me, that inevitably those same brands will end up on asever.com. So that she is making money in all sorts of ways, whether it be affiliate links or whatever over here on the website. By the way, asever.sucks was available last night and I purchased it. That does exist now. It heads you straight over to todiefordaily.com.
You're just reminding me now. Let's reflect for a second. As ever, it's a terrible name. It's terrible. Who came up with
it's like what you said, it's a last ditch effort. It's the last name on the on a long list that she came up with. But I do think I just saw an article in Forbes about some of the clothes she wore at the Invictus Games. I think she is trying to force the influencer narrative through mainstream media. And she is cultivating these little yes women that will cater to the lovey-dovey Meghan, this Meghan sweet stories. And she's pushing them to write these articles about some of the brands that she is again investing in. So it's not organic. It's not like the Princess of Wales wearing something, Catherine wearing something to support the city she's in, wearing a local artist to support the city she's in. Meghan is supporting pieces that she has personally invested in. So if you wear them, if you go buy it, she gets a kickback, and that's hard. It's not as, it's kind of yucky.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit low rent, to say the least. And again, what we were saying earlier, 3-4 years ago, there she was, a frontline member of the British royal family, the most famous family on the face of the earth, fulfilling important functions. And now what is she doing? Trying to sell dresses and flog jam. Yeah. I mean, it's a downward trajectory that it's hard to get your head around. But, if we fast forward now, it is a couple of weeks, less than 2 weeks before With Love, Meghan comes out on Netflix. Jury very much out on that. I suspect the first episode will do quite well. And then I think it will be the law of diminishing returns. I think fewer and fewer people will watch that because I'll guarantee it'll be boring. She's she's swallowed a bucket full of boring pills. She's never able not to be boring. So I guess that series could be troubled. Now, if that series does, like Polo, sink without trace, where is she left then? I mean,
She truly is left just trying to be an influencer. And that is so sad, because for years, you and I had to go on TV and listen to the debates or debate about whether or not this woman could potentially run for president. And now she's going to be selling us diaper rash cream on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. So it's how the mighty have fallen. But she doesn't seem to be noticing that. I mean, with each new desperate step down, she makes a video and says how exciting it all is.
There's something, I don't know if you believe in astrology, but I've been watching some of the astrologers I follow on social media, and they all keep saying it's the time to be delusional. Right now, with the way the stars are aligned, it's the time to be delusional. And all I could think when I was watching that Meghan Markle video was she got the memo. She is so delulu right now.
Yeah, she really is. And it also reveals a sort of really intense, deep level of narcissism. Yeah. She's obsessed with her own success. Now, she's got a nice life there with a royal husband who, who's bringing in them. He's got money, they're not going to starve. She could have the nicest life, but she wants to be the star of that family. She's obsessed with Meghan Markle. Meghan's going to be a star. I'm going to succeed. I'm going to make a fortune. The story here in Montecito will be all about me. But it never will be. It's always going to be about Harry, who, whatever she does, and I bet she hates this, he'll always be, or he is still now fifth in line to the throne. He'll always be a senior member of the British royal family, and she'll always be, someone.
Wallis Simpson.
Someone who used to be in Suits.
Ordeal or no deal.
Yeah. Ordeal or no ordeal. That's her life.
Yeah. So what do you think I guess my real big question that was eating at me all last night was, do you think Meghan Markle watches our interviews? And do you think that's why she released as ever yesterday when she did?
Well, I did hear that you and I do make a certain list at Montecito Towers. And it's the kind of list that SHIT list. I think we're
not a Christmas card list, not a Christmas.
I think we're number one in the charts.
Well, I guess all eyes will be on Netflix on March 4th, and we'll have to wait and see when and if any products ever actually come to fruition. All of this leaked because somebody accidentally published a Shopify webpage too soon. So that's how we found out about As Ever, an accidentally leaked Shopify page. Somebody pressed publish prematurely. And so I'm sure somebody had a reaming yesterday. I'm sure there was an absolute butt chewing that took place in Montecito, but that's just a typical Tuesday over there. And
I reckon this is what a scene you're going to see in about a year's time. It'll be Meghan in Montecito. I'm so excited. I've gone bankrupt. Here's my partners, the bankruptcy lawyers. We're working together. It's so great. It's so great. Haven't got any money left. Everything has failed. So excited.
But for really seriously, a serious question before I let you go, and thanks so much for your time. Do you think that Netflix is the financial backer here, and Meghan is accepting Meghan has no risk associated? Because if so, shame on Netflix and shame on their investors. If I were an investor, I'd be pitching a fit right now.
Well, it's like you discussed on, I think, our last recollection session, when we were kind of surprised that Bella Bajaria, who's the chief content officer of Netflix, was gushing about how excited she was with Love and Meghan and working with Meghan in the future and Harry and all that. We were a bit surprised that she seemed so publicly excited. Well, this is only my speculation, and I know you kind of agree with me, but this is a big company, a big corporation, trying to put a gloss on something that really isn't very successful. Companies don't go around going, you know what, we got this With Love Meghan coming out on March the 4th. It'll probably tank. It's no good. I don't think she's much cop. They would never say that.
And
so
actions speak louder than words. They didn't even acknowledge Meghan at their upfronts.
Yeah. Well, what I think is going on here is they're trying to put a gloss over the decline of their contract with Harry and Meghan. They've still got this contract. So there's no harm in trying this tie-up between With Love Meghan and putting the products on sale in Dallas and Philadelphia, see if they sell, try to flog them on this new website, which is now called As Ever. So it's a rearguard action to try and recoup some money. I don't think they're actually investing that much more. I don't think they're investing any more in it. They're just hoping for the best. And if it all fades away to nothing, Netflix will fade away and it'll be one more story to file in their failure cabinet. I mean, not everything works. Entertainment is a dicey business, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I hope it works for Meghan, but as of now, Kinsey, I don't think it's looking very good.
We are going to discuss, well, Tom Quinn has a new book coming out. And the reason why I wanted to ask you about Wallis Simpson is because this book it quotes courtiers. And according to Quinn, some of the courtiers, when discussing Meghan Markle, said, oh no, we have another Miss Simpson on our hands. And it's not the first time people have compared Meghan and Wallis. My question to you would be, is it low-hanging fruit, divorced American women? Is there really anything to it? Meghan versus Wallis. And is Wallis, do you think that Wallis is remembered accurately? Do we talk about her accurately?
It's really...
It's a lot of questions.
Yeah. It's actually a bit of a minefield. And I love your expression, low-hanging fruit. The outsider, the foreigner, the divorcee, the woman is always low-hanging fruit, Kinsey. When all those four intersect, my goodness, the fruit is the ripest it's ever been. It's just ready to drop onto the ground, into the mouth of the serpent. So, yeah, sure. I think there's really easy comparisons to make. I am always interested in the way, historically, certainly for Wallis Simpson, she's portrayed as the villain, even as recently as in The Crown, where I felt them as a couple were 100% maligned. They really cranked up the Nazi drive. Yep. So the photographs were forefront, alongside Hitler. There we have Edward VIII with his interfering wife. And she was cast in a very unsympathetic, unattractive way. And of course, the reason for that is Peter Morgan, as we're moving forward in the Crown's narrative to the modern day, to depictions of the contemporary and very much living royal family, Morgan wants to withdraw those guns off that particular lawn. And so why not fire them at the dead, maligned Duke and Duchess of Windsor? So again, a case of low-hanging fruit. Do I think she was a Nazi? No, I don't. Do I think she was ambitious? Yes, she was. Do I think that her very relative, rather poor, but within the old school moneyed American world she was born into, her relative poverty mattered to her? Yes, it did. Did that mean she was something of a gold and diamond digger? Yes, she was. Does that mean she was a bad person? No, I don't think it does mean that. So if we then flip to Meghan, is she ambitious? Yes, she is. Is she something of a gold digger? Well, we wouldn't term it as that today. She's out there grafting right now as we speak at the Invictus Games, looking absolutely on point in upscaled beige. Incidentally, I do think their immaculate respective fashion vibes have an echo one to the other. I mean, I don't know what you think about Wallis Simpson's style, but I think she was one of the great sartorial icons of the 20th century. But because she's a baddie, we never frame her as that.
Yeah, first of all, her her stuff comes up constantly in auction, and I would love to own something of hers because it is always beautiful. It's all, you know, a lot of luxury items. The jewelry is just exquisite. Of course, I'll never be able to even touch that, but she had really good style. And do you think that
You know what her best piece was, Kinsey? Can I tell you the best dress she ever wore? It was a Schiaparelli dress, but on it was for her engagement, and the photographs were taken by Cecil Beaton for Vogue before their highly controversial 1937 wedding, after they'd been evicted from the royal family and he'd renounced the crown. She's wearing this exquisite white dress on which, down the front, beneath her nether regions, pointing upwards, is a Salvador Dali painted lobster. Tell me there isn't a better way of acquiring a voice through clothes and through sartorial messaging than a lobster hovering around your vagina painted by Salvador Dali. It's an in-your-face, up yours to the royal family on the other side of the channel, who incidentally did not attend their wedding, pointedly were absent, removed her HRH title or never gave it to her, and stole Cecil Beaton as their royal photographer.
Ooh. Wow. So I would say yes, but I wondered, did that all come naturally to her, or was it encouraged by Edward because he wanted her to feel like the queen that he wished she had been? Or was that similar to Diana, the way that she was able to express herself since her world had changed so dramatically and she couldn't sit down and have a normal conversation with somebody about the truth of what was going on behind the scenes?
Without a shadow of a doubt, Edward was myopically, slavishly obsessed with her. To be clear, and I think again there's a parallel here between Harry and Edward and Meghan and Wallis. The tendency is certainly in Britain is to feel that in some way Wallis was culpable for Edward's decision to renounce the crown. That's not the case. Wallis said to him, do not abdicate. She left for France to get out of the firing line, and Edward decided he could not possibly reign in Britain without his wife by his side. He did what she told him not to do, and as a result, she ended up with a sort of eunuch. Instead of a king as a lover, a eunuch as a husband. We don't even know if Wallis wanted that. In fact, we do know she didn't want that. She was stuck with it. But we blame Wallis. And I know that I've spoken to 100-plus-year-old women a few years ago who said, oh, she stole our king, etc. She was framed as the baddie in the piece because Edward was charismatic, good-looking, popular, relative to his slightly gawky, awkward brother, George. Now, track forward to Harry, and dare I say William, but let's not get too personal with dear William, who's much improved with stubble. Look at Harry, popular, princely, charismatic. We love our Harry. So it's very, very easy to blame his departure on Meghan, is it not? To frame her as the baddie, as the witch.
But have we've all heard and felt like Prince Harry did not like the what he saw for his future. I think he was uninspired, right? Yeah. I do think that it's important that we remember that, because even some of Meghan's biggest critics will admit that Meghan was his ticket out. She wasn't the vehicle, but she was his ticket.
She was his ticket. Now, the difference between her and Wallis, I think, speaks to the different era that we're in. Yeah, Meghan gets to go down the aisle and nobody even cocks a glance sideways at the fact that she was already divorced. Here was a divorcee marrying, granted not an heir to the throne, but nonetheless a significant son of the future king. Meanwhile, Wallis Simpson, twice divorced with 2 living husbands, as was pointed out by the royal family, found that she was cold-shouldered because social mores were very different back then, and it was deemed utterly 100% incomprehensible and impermissible. So in other words, Meghan got what Wallis couldn't have because times have changed, and also Camilla and Charles were both divorced. The man who walked her down the aisle was divorced. But the other thing that's changed hugely is women's professional role. While Wallis loved Edward as a lover with his massive, great big royal jewels that he dumped on her. And he cut a really good deal for himself, by the way, on departure from Britain, which was left relations very sore between him and his brother. There was plenty cash for Wallis's wardrobe and her costumes and her jewelry. Whereas for Meghan, she's got to work using Harry's titles and the princely status that he's gifted her, but nonetheless she's got to graft to make good or to realize that sort of royal success story. For Wallis, she was gifted it because women didn't work then. There wasn't social media or streaming networks. She wasn't an actress, so she couldn't suddenly become a sort of Hollywood siren. So the options available to Wallis were considerably reduced. But on the other hand, Edward came with far greater wealth.
Yeah. Oh, I want to read this quote to you from Tom Quinn's book. It says, Meghan Markle had a typically American view of the royal family before she joined it. For her, life was all about castles, glittering balls, and limitless wealth and ease. As one royal staff member put it, she expected a billionaire and she got a millionaire. So do you think that what we saw... Well, I was just going to say, do you think what we saw after Meghan and Harry left was them realizing that, or Meghan realizing that there was not an endless flow of money, panic, sign on the dotted line? Or was it thought out? I don't know. I mean, it didn't seem...
do you know, I don't know if it wasn't that Harry was insufficiently wealthy. I'm sure he was quite wealthy enough. He inherited a large chunk from his late great-grandmother
and his mother,
and also from Diana. I think it was the lack of freedom or the shackles attached to the money that grated with Meghan, who was used to having her own voice and her own truth. However annoying we, and yes, I include myself, may sometimes find that truth and voice. Okay, it's really funny because I'm often derided as being, this nightmare, Rose Sussex, crazy. And in fact, there's a lot about Meghan that I don't find reprehensible, but I do find a bit excruciating because I'm British and I don't really do that kind of hug me true.
You do with me, but maybe you're just meeting me where I'm at.
Maybe, but that I think it can appear a little bit insincere sometimes as a grinchy Brit, I'm going to say that. And all the kind of really that on point wardrobe stuff, which by the way, Wallis had a more heavily decorated, heavily jeweled style, but nonetheless it was absolutely thought through down to the very last button and bead, as is Meghan's. Now we might find that a bit unedifying. Certainly it's not very British, but it's where Meghan's at. It's her, and I don't feel that she felt able to be her when she wasn't even allowed to wear a free frock or bang on about some cause that she really believed in, unless it was totally devoid of any kind of political angle. So it's that I think it's her own naivety at marrying into the machine and expecting the machine to bend to her, when in fact the machine has never bent, not in 1,000 years, or very reluctantly. But at the same time, that can lead to cynicism, can't it? Because you could say, well, she just married knowing it wasn't going to work. And then, by complaining a lot, dragging her husband famously out of it, Mexit, she was going to have enough steam and notoriety to be able to go forward and develop several platforms, which is precisely what she's done.
You talked about the royal family not bending. Here is a testimonial. Probably not the right word to use, but here's a description of Meghan from one of the former staff members. It says, one of Meghan's former staff recalled the awkwardness and hilarity of early meetings with the new Duchess at Kensington Palace. It was extraordinary because she was so confident that you could see she wanted to run the meeting rather than learn about the royal family through the meeting. I think this was typical of what happened throughout her time at Kensington Palace and then Windsor. She was a great believer in grabbing the bull by the horns, except the royal family is not really a bull. So did Wallis really take a back seat? When you hear that description, that's not something I can ever imagine Wallis doing. And if she did take a back seat, is it because her heart was not in it?
Well, the interesting thing about Wallis is that she was never in the royal family.
Yeah.
It was very clear that Wallis could not be part of the official package. That woman was excluded. So in order to marry that woman, they had to decamp to France. She had to shed all ambition to have a royal title, which really chafed for the Duke of Windsor, that his wife was never HRH. That really, really hurt him. And she therefore operated as the Duchess of a husband who'd given up his throne. So she was, in many ways, without an official role. She never had a role. And I think she vicariously felt hurt on her husband's behalf. She thought it was outrageous the way that they excluded him. After the Second World War, he was never given another formal job. He was derided. He was seen as unreliable. Certainly during World War II, he was more than inconvenient and was hugely, at best, politically naive. So that left Wallis really with a non-role. The only thing she could do really was wear nice frocks and write, in the end, a very anodyne autobiography, which somebody once referred to as the sort of ideal facelift, something that made her look like a sort of frozen flower. But this was a sort of life, I think it was a sort of like being in purgatory. They within their own home, everyone had to use titles, everyone had to be very decorous. All the flummery that Edward had said he hated, he never actually managed to give up outside the royal family. And there again, you have echoes of Harry and Meghan, because it's ironic, isn't it, that Harry felt trapped inside the royal family, but still they are the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and by all accounts his Montecito mansion has 13 fireplaces. That requires a large staff, incidentally, the maintenance of 13 fireplaces. By the way, why do you need fireplaces in California? I don't know. Can you explain that one?
I have a fake one, but it's just because I like watching Pride and Prejudice and turning mine on and feeling like I'm there with them. So you mentioned Wallis's book. Is it The Heart Has Its Reasons? Is that what you're referencing?
Yes.
So
that is right. Yeah.
Another person, another author, Sally Bedell Smith, said watching Meghan's trailer for With Love, Meghan reminded her of Wallis's The Heart Has Its Reasons. If we were to translate that, do you think that Sally Bedell Smith is saying they're both using these objects, these projects, as a way to try to change the narrative, to try to control the story, to try to control how people or what people think about them? Or am I reading too much into that?
The first thing is they were both designed to make money, because although I said Edward left the royal family and cut himself a good deal, that pair were massive spendthrifts and they never had enough money because as established at the beginning, yes, Wallis Simpson was hugely acquisitive. She liked nice things. I think Meghan probably does too. I'm not going to hold that against either of them, okay? But they like nice things. So one writes an autobiography to make money, and the other one streams a series on Netflix. Now, the autobiography is sort of its time. It's very stylized. It's not that indiscreet, to be honest. It positions Wallis as this sort of vulnerable flower in some respects, and also like the facelift, it embellishes all positive features of the woman who never was the queen. And I think what we'll see, we've only seen a trailer of Meghan's Californian version of domestic bliss. There is a bit of channeling the 1950s housewife, which incidentally the Duchess of Windsor was, and this book comes out at about that time. It does feel somewhat dated, but in a period of deep insecurity, I think there is an appetite for hunkering down, controlling what is available to us within our domestic sphere. We see it a lot with Gen Z and all their sort of facial massages and obsession with skincare products. I think we see it with the slightly older millennial generation in terms of, how to set a table or how to do a mantelpiece or how to control that which is within potentially our control, because out there in Trump land, in Putin land, in climate change crisis land, it's bonkers. It's something existential.
I was thinking more like Blake Lively. Ever since this Blake, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but ever since this Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case has blown up in the media, I think that there's no way for us to control our own images anymore. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. The days of you paying a Hollywood publicist $10,000 a month to make sure that everybody knows you're the new it girl, you're the sweet girl, all the boys want to date you, you're the next big thing, they're over. It's just, and it's TikTok that controls the world. It's algorithms, it's analytics, it's no longer the press release or the whisper at a hotel lobby bar that you got to check out the newest thing. And I think that that's what Meghan and Harry are struggling with, because I think that the palace, we also saw it with Catherine. The palace couldn't control what everyone was saying about Catherine after she had her abdominal surgery, which turned into cancer. And I think Meghan, having spent, 30 years in Hollywood, she has very old ideas of how to control her image. And she's trying to catch up right now. That's why we're seeing her on Instagram and seeing her trying to create content on streaming, because she's just trying to catch up. But I do think we saw very old maneuvers previously.
It's interesting. I potentially, you're right. I think the level of the trolling took both of them by surprise, Harry and Meghan, and they clearly have a vulnerability when it comes to reading too much of that stuff, because it's the road to nowhere, as we know, Helena Handcart. But I also think that the comparison with Kate isn't, I'm not going to go with that, Kinsey, because while, you're right, the genie was out the bottle, everything possible was imagined and said about Kate this time last year when she suddenly disappeared from public view. What's happened since is the very clear reframing of Kate within the palace walls.
True.
So this almighty institution, there she is as a future wife to the head of state, hugely protected. And actually, because of her own personal journey, on track to sainthood, really, in this country. You cannot touch Kate.
Right.
Now, Meghan, no matter how much she hugs people and says, oh, I'm doing good in the California wildfires, because she is not protected by an institution of state, is always going to be questioned about, and how are you going to make money out of this, Megs? But precisely because she's not bankrolled. So there is a question mark over where is the money coming from, a valid question mark that undercuts any attempt on her part to do good, which is kind of weirdly unfair, because even chief execs of charities get paid triple figure salaries. So there's something kind of, I think they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. And it's because they're trying to do this service thing outside the royal family, whereas only the royal family get away with that. It's bonkers that the royal family do get away with that. Some of the richest people in Britain, they go around and we go, oh, they work so hard, when they glad hand and they acknowledge little bits of charity work here, there and everywhere. But we swallow it hook, line and sinker, because we need to believe there is something greater and better than us. And I don't know if you saw at the weekend, this massive interview done, two of the parents who lost their daughters at the horrific Stockport stabbings. And they wanted to reframe the narrative around that, because at the court hearing, which saw Axel Radikabani, imprisoned, there was these graphic details about what had happened to their little lovely daughters, and they wanted to tell the story of their wonderful daughters. But in among that storytelling, they absolutely placed central to their narrative the importance of that visit from the Princess of Wales. They made it really clear that for them was a touchstone in their journey. Something, almost you got that feeling of, the medieval monarch who healed, and there was that kind of vibe coming off these bereaved parents' stories, and the impact of being visited by the so too vulnerable post-cancer princess. And it was profound, and it served to underline the importance of the royal family in our nation's story, and by default the no man's land that Harry and Meghan find themselves in.
Wow, you are so right. I had not thought of it that way. Do you think that they realized because I think that they would still have the magic of the royal family had they not been critical at all. But you and I both know, realistically, no one would have given them the amounts of money that were promised to them had there not been some sort of guarantee that they would get an inside scoop, But if they had not been critical of the royal family, would Harry and Meghan still have that magic attached to them that would allow people to forgive them for trying to monetize their relationship with the royal family and show up? And I
I don't think that was ever on the cards because I think Harry was so angry.
Yeah.
So he had to get it out, and if he got paid for it at the same time, bully for Harry. He was proper angry in a way that you only can be with your dad and sibling. And the problem was it was cast through the prism of an attack on our most revered ancient institution, even though we all know jolly well it's hugely flawed. And that meant that Harry tripped himself up before he even began his journey into this land of the free in America. But I think the bigger issue for them is how you have as your central raison d'etre a do-gooding, a philanthropic thrust, if you also have to earn money. Bill Gates became a philanthropist after he earned his billions. Okay, so how do you do it at the same time? It's a contradiction in terms. What is that expression? It's harder for the rich man to pass through the eye of a needle than it is to, it's harder for a rich man to enter heaven than it is for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle, or some ridiculous biblical expression. Well, we are cynical about people who have high profiles who also are trying to own or wear the clothes of the philanthropist.
It's true. So when you look at the Wallis, Simpson, and Meghan Markle comparisons, some are fair. That's what I've taken away from this. Some are fair.
Yeah, they were upscale glamour, the pair of them, in a way that is hugely un-British, Kinsey. I made a special effort today. I've curled my hair and there might just be a few creases in my dead father's shirt. But the truth is that we don't do upscale glamour in that old style American way that is, I think, the USP of your nation, not ours. And I think we find it a bit alienating and a bit too curated. And I mean, I like it, but it's very American.
Yeah.
That definitely is a similarity, the sartorial style and the money required to maintain that level of style, and the designers and nothing comes for free. We know that. I also think the divorcee point, the idea of them being framed as the controlling woman, it's not necessarily true. Yeah. I think the one thing we've overlooked is that in both cases, their royal husbands were myopically obsessed with them. And I think there might be something to be said for the men being more in love with the women than the other way around in both cases.
Wow, I can't imagine somebody giving up their title for me. That would be, we always have this conversation. Sounds so romantic, but it also sounded like she was living a nightmare.
A lot of pressure on Meg's, but I'm not sure that Meg's is as upset. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I was talking about Wallis. I think Meghan's having a way better time than Wallis was. I think...
but do you think, I think she's having a way better time, but do you think that Meghan is as in love with Harry as Harry is with Meghan?
No.
I rest my case.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Well, are we more sympathetic towards Wallis today than they were back then, or do we still villainize her? And sometimes I mean, I just talked to, I've talked to several people that Andrew Morton wrote a book about how he thought she was sleeping with the Nazis. Like there are still people that do not
we are really unsympathetic, even though by today's standards being divorced a couple of times is absolutely de rigueur, darling. We make out that she had some kind of weird sexual fetishes when in fact when she was in China with her first naval husband Spencer, some ghastly aristocrat who drank too much, we never see her as the beaten woman or the subjected woman. We always see her as the villain. There was the Traitor King book that was also written about Edward, making him out to be the real villain of the piece, when the truth is that Edward and Wallis Simpson placed their love higher than their job, or Edward's job, as head of state. Now, you could see that as treacherous, or you could see that as highly romantic. And Harry and Meghan did the same. Harry didn't have the same big gig. He wasn't ever going to be king, but he placed his relationship with Meghan above that. The problem is, because they've gone out there and sold that narrative to make money in their brave new world, it has sullied the moral high ground. But both of them, they are women, and we see them as scheming because ultimately they stole two of the most attractive, charismatic royal players from the modern royal family in the 20th and 21st centuries. And Britain will find that always hard to forgive.
Tessa, how can people follow you? Tell me about your YouTube channel.
Oh, I'm about to properly start my YouTube channel. Did you know that?
I
know, but it hasn't.
Tell me
yes, but we haven't got enough content to launch. Do you know?
Okay.
Making
Okay,
content
so
because
this
apparently you have to post every day.
in the TV industry, we call this a deep tease. So if you would like to follow Tessa on YouTube, it's a coming. Just wait. I'll have you come back when it's ready to when you're ready to promote it. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I do think that this is an interesting conversation because there's no way it's going to go away. Meghan versus Wallis, and yes, their style is immediately is the first thing I thought of. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And you're right. I think it's important that we see both sides and digest both sides. But before we make any extreme judgments, because Wallis did have a tough past, and I don't know if we acknowledge that when we talk about her and when we're highly critical of her. It is important to say that, I mean, her first husband beat the living hell out of her, didn't he?
He was a drunk. I mean, if anyone's been married to a drunk man, I think just finally, what they did was they came up against the rock that is the British royal family, and we know, British people know, whether you are a massive royalist or not, that institution is flawed. But we do not want any foreigner telling us it's flawed or undermining it by squirreling away our key royal players, marrying them with as divorced women. So they were on, both of them are hiding to nothing. It's akin to, your brother, he's a pain in the neck, he does your head in, but if someone tries to take him on or criticize him, suddenly, exactly it. That's exactly it. And that's what they've done. They've attacked our sibling. That's what it feels like when they attack the royal family.
That's right. I look for any excuse to give someone a knuckle sandwich, so don't mess with my little brothers.
Can we talk about King Charles? Apparently he's going to be deployed on a charm offensive mission to the United States. I think it's fair to say that we have a rather rocky relationship right now, or the government has a rocky relationship with the United States and with Trump. So cue the King.
Well, cue the King and the Prince of Wales. I think the issue is Donald Trump is a royalist. As we saw during his presidential election campaign, he was very happy to share pictures of his state visit with the Queen. He is at heart a bit of an Anglophile, for whatever he may be saying about members of the Labour Party and his team saying about members of the Labour Party. At heart, he's a bit of an Anglophile, and he's very much a royalist. So I think it actually, with the fact that the King might be able to provide a bit of soft politics, that's part of the role of the royal family when they go on state visits, is to open doors and be that sort of good view of Great Britain, as it were, going on tour. So actually, it's probably quite shrewd of Keir Starmer to say, well, I'll put the King in the firing line because I may be having to he may have a different view of what he thinks of me. But the King, and he, we know Donald Trump loves his ego being stroked, and the King, I'm sure, will be very good to making Donald Trump feel that this is a great moment in his life to be with the King and indeed the Prince of Wales.
And, of course, in the United States. And if this comes to fruition, it will be the first time a British monarch has visited the United States since 2007.
Yes, well, obviously, that would have been the late Queen. So in many ways, it's probably due to happen. But it's probably even more important given the rocky nature of the relationship between the various political parties either side of the Atlantic. So it is important that the King, who's very keen to fulfill his role, even with the fact that he's still recovering from cancer, he wants to be out and about, and he would see this as an important visit to have, whenever that should be.
And what happens, and heaven forbid this doesn't happen, but if the King then needs treatment for his cancer, is there a backup plan?
Well, again, look, everything's been movable with the royal family. Everything has been doctors led. So if there is, maybe something does happen, then perhaps the Prince of Wales would step in and take it. But it very much the royal family, when it comes to the health issues, they said will be led by the doctors. So things can always change. But as we're seeing at the moment, it seems I need one of those doctors. Things seem to be on an even keel with regard to the progress of both the King's health and the Princess of Wales's health.
Can I just ask you, there's an article in the Mail this morning saying Donald Trump remains committed to Prince Harry facing a criminal prosecution if he's found to have lied about his drugs use in his visa application. Now, last week, my understanding was that he would not deport the Duke of Sussex, saying that he had punishment enough with his quote-unquote terrible wife.
Is this Donald Trump sticking to the true path and then changing a week later? There doesn't seem to be any change there, does it?
No, not
but
really.
What I would say, the Heritage Foundation in the States are definitely going after Prince Harry because they want to make sure the truth is out. That's what they're saying, is we need to know, how did Prince Harry get into the country after saying in his autobiography that he'd been taking various drugs at some stage in his life.
Yeah, cocaine, marijuana, magic mushrooms.
To name, I think those are the three that he referred to in the book. So Donald Trump is saying, yes, we need to find out. I probably won't deport him, but what I might do is give him a whacking great fine or something like that, because that's what would happen if it went to court. I'm not sure we'll see him heading back to Great Britain, whatever the circumstances, but it does show that this is a little bit of an irritant, probably, for Donald Trump, that he's having to deal with it. Meghan's made her views about him, doesn't rate Donald Trump at all. And also, Prince Harry probably is happy at the moment being at the Invictus Games in Canada, doing this thing on his own at the moment.
Hi, Kevin. I did not think that things could get any busier than they were last week. And I wake up today and see that American Riviera Orchard might be dead. She might be now calling it As Ever. She has a new logo that looks suspiciously like another existing logo. Meghan keeps us very busy, Kevin.
She certainly does. So what is the latest on American Riviera Orchard? Because last week, the big story was that Netflix were going to reinvigorate that whole project, start selling her jam and her honey and her wallpaper and her pet food and pet shampoo at various shopping malls in America, where Netflix have got physical stores, and that was the idea, would be to reinvigorate American Riviera Orchard to coincide with the release of her program With Love Meghan, which starts on March the 4th on Netflix. So what we knew prior to that, you and I discussed it at great length, is that American Riviera Orchard was mired in all sorts of legal wrangles, trademarks, what to call it, and even the name of the company itself was being challenged in the courts. Are you saying now she is going to have to change the name, Kinsey?
Yeah, we believe so. There is a new trademark under the name As Ever. Not enough to verify that this... As ever, boring as ever is what I would say. Yeah. Boring as ever. It's not necessarily that we don't have proof that this is necessarily what they're going to go with, because as you and I both know, Harry and Meghan enjoy sending us in 30 different directions. I don't know if it's a control thing or just avoiding the inevitable, where ultimately we dissect their projects and determine that some of them are absolutely terrible ideas. But it's the same design theme as American Riviera Orchard. The penmanship on the logo is similar to Meghan Markle's. It's the same law firm handling the legal trademark work, in a long list of products that she's trying to include, whether it be the yoga mats or the dog bowls or whatever. It's similar when listing off the products in the paperwork. Now, she filed that paperwork for As Ever in September of last year, just weeks after, we saw the cracks starting to appear when it came to the American Riviera Orchard trademark and name. And the logo that has been submitted looks like a coat of arms that already exists, which is very Meghan Markle. You know, that the lack of creativity there does not surprise us, but something to keep our eye out for. I can very much see her deciding to surprise everyone with a different name.
Yeah.
Now that American Riviera Orchard has proven to be so difficult to get past the trademark office. And remember, this is also one of the things that her neighbors have complained about. You've hijacked our, you know, this
because the
spot.
area where they live, Montecito, is called the American Riviera, and that's one of the reasons that she's encountered legal trouble with that name, because in the States you can't just utilize a geographical name because you could be seen to be cashing in on that. So that's where she's hit problems. So you now say it's going to be called As Ever. I think considering she launched it last March, pretty much an entire year ago, and it's still...
We could call it As Never.
Yeah,
as
it's
never.
exactly what I was... You see, you ruined my joke then. That's what I was going to say.
Or did I make it better because we're
You
on
did
the
make
same
it better.
page?
As always, Kinsey, you made it better. Yeah, but a better name for it would be As Never, because nothing seems to happen, but it may still launch.
Talking about William and the fact that he was a no-show at the BAFTA Awards. I mean, he did pre-record a message. Of course, he's president of BAFTA. It was the 20th anniversary of the Rising Star Award. William gave a very nice address to BAFTA, but of course, you know, his absence was quite notable. He was last there in 2024 when he made a solo appearance on the red carpet, because of course, if you're thinking back to this time last year, Catherine had just gone in for her surgery, her planned abdominal surgery. And of course, they were probably in that period of waiting for those tests post-surgery, possibly didn't realize at this moment that actually she had cancer, but she'd clearly been in for a major surgery. She was in for a 2-week recovery period at the hospital. And so, you know, for William to be on the red carpet, I think was a big thing for him to attend the BAFTAs. And I think there was a lot of expectation that we might see both of them on the red carpet at this year's ceremony. But of course, they were not there. According to the Mail on Sunday, they've taken this opportunity. It's half term over here in the UK. So all of the schools are off, and they've taken this opportunity to whiz off to Mustique for a week. And I think ordinarily, I think this story might have caused a bit of kickback for the Waleses. I think people might have felt that as president of BAFTA, you know, that's a big deal. We would expect to see William. These are annual awards, and of course his presence and when Kate's appeared in the past have always generated so much press and publicity for BAFTA that, of course, as a charity and an organisation, they're deeply grateful to the Waleses for their patronage, and they do light up the red carpet in a way that none of the film stars actually can do. But I think this year, given what a horrendous year it's been for William and Catherine, I don't think anyone really has too much of a problem with them not being there, and I think probably understands that what they need most of all is a bit of family time, a bit of sunshine. And of course, Mustique is a very special place to them, and somewhere where they can get away, they're never photographed, and they can enjoy some special family time. I'm curious to know, Kinsey, what's the mood like over in LA, where obviously BAFTAs is still, you know, you're leading up to, or you're going to be in the midst of award season very soon. What's the feeling like that he wasn't there? Has it bothered people, or are they pretty sympathetic to the fact that he's used this as a chance to take a quick vacation?
I think that they are sympathetic towards the fact that this is a family that had a tough year last year, and perhaps they're trying to make up for lost time and enjoy each other in any possible way that they can. It does feel, and I'm not insulting anyone in any way, shape, or form, but when we hear that the Princess of Wales is going to be cautious, that maybe that's the word gradual was used. There's gradual return to work. It does feel like a red carpet might not be a priority if she is tiptoeing into getting back to work because she wants to keep up with her health, you know, mental strength and physical strength after such a horrific cancer scare. So I don't know if anyone expected specifically Catherine to be there. But I don't think that they're disappointed by the lack of Prince William. I do think that people would be surprised to know how much Catherine and William love entertainment. I think that they do enjoy sitting down to a good movie and a good TV show. So it makes a lot of sense to me that this is one of, Prince William's causes that he does sincerely care about. It's just they wanted to spend some time with their family, and who can blame them after last year?
I think you're absolutely right. And I think you raise a really important point about the whole red carpet scenario. And when I'm thinking, as you're talking about, I'm thinking of the Princess of Wales at the Bond premiere when she was in that fabulous Jenny Packham gold cape dress. The times that she has walked the red carpet for film premieres and indeed for BAFTA. And, she just knocks everyone else off the front pages. And of course, for BAFTA, that is a priceless moment. But I think the point you make is an important one, because it's not like we haven't seen her back at work in recent weeks. And while the palace has billed it as a gradual return to work, actually, it's felt like a pretty significant return to work. I've certainly been filing lots of stories about her going to the National Portrait Gallery and taking a minibus with a load of school children to go and take them on a trip during Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. She was visiting a prison up in Cheshire last week to learn more about mother-baby units and how better as a society we can support incarcerated mothers or mothers with children or mothers who are about to become mothers in the prison system. I would say quite gritty work, very important work. And obviously it all ties in very much with Kate's early years campaign. And so I think she's been very, very busy. And we've also had that story. I know there was a bit of a U-turn with the palace, but that story about how she wants the focus to be on her work and not her wardrobe, even though Kensington Palace are now saying we will be told details about her wardrobe as and when it's significant, which is, I think, the way it should be. But the point is, she left this time last year when she was about to embark on a number of really important projects. And I think there's a sense about her that she really wants to pick up where she left off. And if we're going to see her, I don't necessarily know if she wants it to be about the red carpet and the glamour and the dresses. I think she wants it to be about her important work. And of course, remember, it's William who's patron of BAFTA, not Catherine. And I wonder if they were both in the country, whether she would have attended. I think it's pretty unlikely. So I'm pleased the reception is one that generally people are behind them. They haven't had a holiday together for a very long time. And this is, as you say, going to be very, very important family time.
Talking about all things America, something that they exported to us, and we said, you know what, thanks for that, but we're going to send it back from whence it came, was Meghan Markle. And she's back in the headlines again, isn't she? Because her sort of vomit-inducing, self-aggrandizing, narcissist project of, look at me, isn't my life better than yours, and I can show you how to be as prim and proper and perfect as me, is going to launch on Netflix soon, after she had to abandon it to go and look prim, proper, perfect and compassionate over in wildfires in California she had nothing to do with. But anyway, her project has hit a few obstacles, it seems. First of all, it was named Riviera something or the other, and that name had to be dropped because it was nicked from someone else. The logo's been nicked from Mallorca's crest of arms or something like that, and so she's changed it to being called As Ever. Yep, as corny and as cringeworthy as ever. Well, it turns out that even As Ever is being nicked. Apparently a New York family clothing brand has said that it's received an outpouring of concern because that is their name. Oh, it never rains, but it pours over in Montecito. Let's speak now to Angela Livin, royal biographer. Angela, great to have you on the programme. I mean, they just she sleepwalks and staggers into the next difficulty. Is that just because, people are just set against her now, so they want to throw grenades in her direction? Or is she just clueless?
Well, the interesting thing is that not many people have mentioned is that she couldn't find someone who could take control of what she wanted to do. So she's named herself now as a CEO. So she doesn't get advice. She won't listen to anything that people tell her because she is Meghan and she knows better. So she's making a complete mess of everything she touches because she doesn't know how to run a big company, but she thinks she does. So that's, I think, the main reason why it's hopeless. I mean, it's not difficult to look things up and find that someone else has got the same name, so then you don't take it. I mean,
Right.
but she's not interested. But what I think is absolutely the worst thing is for her to go on Instagram, because her husband, who she showed so much love to, she couldn't stop kissing him and stroking his neck and all that. He does not like social media. He really doesn't. He's been working for years to stop families letting their children watch. I mean, they've even set up something special for that, of people whose children have died because they've been watching social media. But Meghan couldn't care less.
Oh, she loves it. She needs it. That's, you know, she's sort of, that is what her life is. But let's talk about those two, actually, because not long ago, it looks like all wasn't happy in the Hollywood Hills. They were doing lots of separate events. Was this a PR strategy to sort of break the brand down into two different cohorts? Or do you think there are issues going on inside that marriage?
Oh, I think there's an amazing number of issues going inside that marriage. And mainly it's because Meghan keeps changing on what matters to her. So 1 minute she can't stand for Harry anymore, and she tells him to go away. So he goes away and does what he was doing years ago before he ever knew her, the sort of charities. And then she realized she can't do it without him. Invictus Games, just right. I can present myself. I can have the cameras looking at me all the time. So I've got to keep on kissing Harry. So she does that. It's all according to what she needs and what she wants. I mean, she is absolutely awful. So poor old Harry, except it is his own fault, isn't it? It doesn't have to be there. Just follows. And she puts him on one thing she's doing. He's on for, half a minute.
Most of the time, let's be fair, she makes him look like a total prat. She's sitting there doing some sort of me video, and he has to juggle looking through the window or something like that. It's, oh my God, how appalling. What a way to treat your husband. He had his 40th birthday alone, and he went off with friends. They didn't even spend that together. He went hiking somewhere. That seems like a bit of a midlife crisis breakdown of marriage act.
Yeah, but I think he just feels that when she wants him, he will come. But actually, what we saw in Invictus Games made you want to be sick, actually, because that's not the way to behave, is it? And now, when she was doing this as ever, I hope she's not as ever, because she's so awful now. Perhaps she can change a little bit. But if she does as ever, he said one word, it's running. So you recognize the voice, you knew he was there, he had nothing more to do with it. She just wants him hanging around if ever he's needed. It's just terrible.
Oh, poor thing. You make him sound like a victim of domestic abuse. Kenny from Edinburgh says, hi, Alex, why doesn't Meghan Markle name her brand Wannabe, but never will? As ever wouldn't do, even if she hadn't nicked it. I mean, this is the thing. A lot of people say the world is pretty cruel to Meghan. Perhaps she's just, shaped a bit differently from the rest of us and isn't really a bad person. But she attracts a huge amount of, public kickback, doesn't she? I mean, you've just said she's awful, she's terrible. I mean, let's substantiate that. What makes her so wicked?
Well, I think what makes her so wicked is that she couldn't care less about anybody else. And things that Harry feels is very, very important. He doesn't want his children to be shown on TV. He really doesn't. So there's two things now that he's really important about. They're crashed. They don't care. She doesn't care. It has to be her. And I think also her lack of gratitude to the royal family, who not only made her one of the most famous women in the world, made her one of the richest women in the world. But she moans and groans. She likes to be a victim. So every now and then she finds a good reason why things are not fair.
And it's never her fault.
Let's talk about last week when she went to Whistler in Canada to help launch the Invictus Games. Well, we know now that there's a lot of disquiet about her behaviour, the way she made that event all about her, constantly kissing Harry. By the way, did you see on Valentine's Day she released yet another picture of her kissing Harry, this time in black and white. That would be on the Valentine's Day that she left him in Canada to fly back to America, to the West Coast, to Montecito. So who said the age of romance is dead? Well, it is with Meghan.
Just give it another 12 months, Kev. Once once she has her Instagram really up and running, maybe next year it can be sponsored by some sort of herpes medication or something. Who knows? You know, you got to get those. You got to get your posts sponsored.
But papers at the weekend here, Kinsey, all full of double-page spread, for example, in the Mail on Sunday, full of the fury emanating from the organisers of the Invictus Games, that woman came here and basically stole the limelight, stole all of our limelight, made it all about her. And they're still furious about this. And Harry allowed it. And one of the things that was going on that has really upset the media, really upset the organisers, is there were all these events, special events happening that the media were not allowed into. She went in, took pictures of it and filmed herself there and then put it onto her Instagram account. So it looked as if the entire occasion was organised to allow Meghan to get exclusive footage for her social media account. People noticed that and they're not happy.
Well, have you seen that Katie Price now actually charges media outlets to share the photos that she posts on social media? It's not fair game anymore. You know, if you want to share something that Katie Price posts on her social media, she charges you a fee. The countdown is on to when Meghan Markle does something similar. You know, you heard it here first. Yes, of course she wants the exclusive access. She's trying to grow her social media platform because her ultimate objective today is to be an influencer. And I think it's wildly suspicious that at the time that she shut down the TIG Instagram account and her Instagram account, because she was marrying Prince Harry, she had over 3 million followers. And today she struggles to reach a similar number. Why is that? Is it because she's alienated so many people? Is it because those numbers back in the day weren't authentic to begin with? Did she, I don't know, fluff the numbers up so using a digital agency or something so that she would look much more significant than she was when she was engaging with some of the brands she was trying to engage with at that time, like Bobbi Brown Cosmetics, and when she was introduced to people like Prince Harry. I think it's all very odd, but yeah, clearly that was a strategy so that if you wanted to see what was going on in the Invictus Games, there was only one place for you to go, and that was Meghan Markle's Instagram account.
Which the media are very upset about, and a lot of the organisers were too, we're led to believe. So she didn't exactly go down a storm up in Canada. So she came back last Friday, which was Valentine's Day, leaving Harry there. Not very romantic, to say the least. Came back, by the way, of course, you know, are we surprised, in a private jet. Killing the planet. So more hypocrisy. This from Harry and Meghan, who both lecture us about how we must leave a lower carbon footprint, we must save the planet, but they fly everywhere in private jets. One rule for them and a different rule for the rest of us. Them effectively saying, do as we say, not as we do. Harry, I wouldn't do what you told me if it was the last thing on earth, because I don't take instructions from idiots. But seriously, she came back in a private jet. Hypocrisy, yet more hypocrisy. And then we learn, though, this is the big development, again, a story we discussed last week, Kinsey, that the President Trump, who had at one point sort of threatened to kick Prince Harry out of America if it turned out he'd lied on his visa application. And he said last week, I'm not going to kick him out. You know, he's got enough trouble. He's got enough problems with that wife of his. She's terrible. That's what he said. The jury's out on that one, Meghan. You've got to prove that you're not doing too well so far.